We've talked so far about how we can take basic derivatives and how we can take derivatives when things are being added and subtracted from each other. When they're added and subtracted from each other, we can just take the derivative of each piece individually. However, that's not true when it comes to multiplying. If two functions are being multiplied together, we're not allowed to just take the derivative of each one individually and then multiply. That's not allowed. So we have to have this special rule called the product rule. So if you call the first function f and the second function g, then the rule is f prime times g plus f times g prime. In other words, you take the derivative of the first piece, multiply by the second piece, plus the first piece times the derivative of the second piece. I promise as you see a couple examples, you'll see this isn't that complex. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not very complicated. And as you look at this first example I have, you actually would not have to use the product rule on this. You could just FOIL this out and then do the derivative normally. However, just to start us off with a simpler example, I'm going to go ahead and do this one using the product rule. But if you want, you could FOIL this, take the derivative normally, and you'd get the same answer. So here's what we do. We identify the first piece as f of x and the second piece as g of x. Now if you notice, I need 4 pieces to complete this. I need the original f and its derivative. I need the original g and its derivative. So if I can just get those 4 pieces, then it's just a matter of putting them in the right order. So what I'm going to do is over here to the side, I'm going to identify that f of x is 3x minus 5x squared, and g of x is 5 plus 4x. And then I'm going to find their derivatives. F prime will be 3 minus 10x, and g prime will be 4. So now I have all 4 of the pieces they asked me for. And if you notice the way I wrote it, which was on purpose, you basically end up just cross-multiplying. Because first it asked for f prime times g, so I just do these two multiplied. F prime times g. And I get 3 minus 10x times 5 plus 4x. And then I add f times g prime. So I multiply these two together, and I get 3x minus 5x squared times 4. So I FOIL the first set. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 4x is 12x. Negative 10x times 5 is negative 50x. Negative 10x times 4x is negative 40x squared. And then over here, I need to distribute the 4, so I get 12x minus 20x squared. Now I simply combine like terms and I'll have my answer. 15 is the only constant. 12x minus 50x plus 12x should give you minus 26x. And the negative 40x squared minus 20x squared gives you negative 60x squared. So this is the derivative of our function. Now this example, x times sine of x, you could not do any other way but with the product rule. The first one you could have FOILed, but there's nothing you could do here to simplify it and make it so you're not multiplying. So we'll identify our f as x and our g as sine of x. And I'll do f of x equals x and g of x equals sine of x. And I do f prime equals 1 and g prime equals cosine of x. F prime times g gives you sine of x, plus f times g prime is x cosine x. And that's it. The good thing about the trig was is there's not really anything to simplify most of the time, or there's less to simplify anyway. So this is our final answer. This is the slope of our function h. So this is h prime of x. Now in this third example for product rule, we have 2x cosine x minus 2 sine x. And remember, when you're adding or subtracting, you are allowed to treat them separately. So I can treat this as one problem and this as a complete other problem and then just subtract my results. So if you look at the first blue box, 2x cosine x, that piece does require the product rule. So let's go ahead and do it. I'll call 2x f and I'll call cosine of x g. So f of x equals 2x, g of x equals cosine of x. So f prime is 2, and g prime is negative sine x. F prime times g will give me 2 cosine x, then plus f times g prime is 2x times negative sine x. And then I've completed that first box. So let's actually color code this. We'll make the second box green. We can do it all by itself. It does not require the product rule. You only need the product rule when you have two things with x in them being multiplied by each other. So here we can just take the derivative the way it is. The derivative of a sine is cosine, so we'll have 2 cosine x. Well, if you notice, 2 cosine x minus 2 cosine x cancels, and your final answer will just be negative 2x times sine of x. And all I did was bring that negative out front. So that is the product rule.